Welcome to the last lesson of the chapter. Last week what we learned how to do was multiply binomials. Part of the explanation included an example of people meeting. We learned to look at the problem as though the terms inside the parentheses were friends and that each multiplication represented a meeting. And so we tried to personify it a little bit so we could make sense of it. So in this case, Tim and Val don't need to meet because they already know each other. Again, they're friends. Sam and Jen don't need to meet because they're already friends. But what will happen is that Tim meets Sam, and we always use the plus. Tim meets Jen, and Val meets Sam, and Val meets Jen. And so that was where we went last week in terms of our multiplication, so we knew how to make everything match up and meet up like it was supposed to. A lot of it you were able to comprehend the process as you made a connection to it, and also took time to practice. I believe that the transition to today's work will be just as smooth. It's just a different type of scenario where you have 2 friends in this set and 3 friends in that set. And again, all it's going to take is just a slight adjustment and remembering what it really means. In this case, Ike meets Sam, and Ike meets Ned, and Ike is also going to have to meet Pat. So there's going to be 3 handshakes before you can move on to the next person. After that, Ben meets all 3, so Ben meets Sam, and I'm just going to go ahead and move down here with that. Ben meets Ned, and Ben meets Pat. So the general idea here is just making sure you understand that when there are 3 people there, that Ike needs to meet all 3, and then Ben needs to meet all 3. Once you get that idea, everything else is really just going to be combining like terms. There are 2 ways that can be used to work out these types of problems. I'm going to work out each one in a different way just to show you how you could do it. There is a way that goes straight across, and there is a way that stacks. This one here I'm going to work out going straight across. And again, if you need to list out the meetings, that's great, but I am not going to list the meetings because I'm trying to help you to just understand the format of it. But if you need to list the meetings, that is fine. 2x times 3x squared makes 6x to the third because it's 6 with 3 x's. This is going to be negative 8 with 2 x's. This here is going to be plus 2 with 1x. Again, 6x to the third minus 8x squared plus 2x. Now that 2x has met everybody, now 5 meets everybody. So plus 15x squared minus 20x plus 5. And again, this is where you just go straight across and list them all. The thing about doing that is that you need to make sure you're careful and that you look carefully whenever you go through it. 6x to the third has nothing to combine with, so we bring it down. 8x squared meets with 15x squared. That's a negative 8 and a positive 15, which makes a positive 7. X squared, you can check that with your calculator if you want. 2x meets negative 20x to make negative 18x, and then plus 5 just comes on down for the ride. So again, it's nothing really major. It's just the fact that instead of having 4 terms now you've got 6, and you've got to be careful in how you put them together. Now if you don't like finding like terms that way, there is another way to do it where you stack up your parts, and I'm going to show you that here. So in this case, 3x meets 4x squared to make 12x squared. 3x meets negative 3x to make negative 9x squared. 3x meets negative 2 to make negative 6x. Now what I'm going to do is stack them up on the second time through. And so negative 2 meets 4x squared to make negative 8x squared. And what I'm going to do is put my x squared under the x squared. So again, this makes negative 8x squared. So instead of extending this, I'm just going to stack up the matching terms. So 2x or negative 8x squared goes under 9x squared. This makes a positive 6x, which I'm going to put here. And this makes a positive 4, which of course is the non-term. So now you notice, this actually should be x to the third. But now you notice my x's go 3, 2, 1, and then none. And all I have to do is combine them, getting 12x to the third, negative 17x squared, 6x and negative 6x actually cancel, and then plus 4, which gives me the answer. Whatever way works best for you, just use it and make sure you use it appropriately. The whole point is that you get it right when the test pops up and that you have at least an understanding, so whenever you see this later on in your math, that you at least can deal with it and cope with whatever it's asking you to do. As we prepare for the test, there are two other types of special multiplication problems that we must be ready for. The first one involves exponents, and it requires us to remember that x squared means take x times x, which means multiply x twice. We also learned that the expression of 5x squared y squared means expand this part twice. The bottom line is to remember that the exponent of 2 simply tells us to write expanded form, and the stubbornness in this case is what typically makes students rush through this problem, and that represents 95% of the errors in this type of problem. Because most of the students who miss this question know how to answer it, but because they rush through and don't take their time and do what I'm telling you to do right now or what I'm about to tell you to do, that is the reason why you miss it. So the answer is easy to find. Unfortunately, you will miss it if you choose to take a shortcut and then not expand it and you try to just do it as if you know everything that goes on, which is really dangerous to do with this question. So when you see x minus 5 squared, what you want to do is write x minus 5 and x minus 5. Because what you would write is x squared plus 25, but you forget that there is a middle term there. X times x is x squared. X times negative 5 is negative 5x. There's another negative 5x, and here is a plus 25. And what you would have missed if you didn't expand it is this term right here, which becomes x squared minus 10x plus 25. Again, if you do it your way, you would have wrote x squared plus 25, and you would have missed it because of that middle part. So again, make sure whenever you see that squared, remember that that squared is telling you to write it twice, and then take your time and multiply the way you learned last week. This is nothing really new. It's just a matter of discipline more than anything else. Same thing, when you see 4x minus 7 squared, it means write 4x minus 7, 4x minus 7. From there, multiply it out. 16x squared minus 28x minus 28x plus 49. Put your like terms together, you get 16x squared minus 56x plus 49. Again, I am moving through this because we worked on the multiplication skill last week, which means that you have the power to pause the video or take time to actually write it. But I don't think I should have to go through the process because you actually learned that last week. If you are having issues with the process, make sure you speak to a teacher so you can try to get that understood, because your fluency is what's going to make this much better for you. And again, fluency just means you're faster at it. So for example, if somebody says what's 5 times 5, you got some kids who just automatically say 25. You have other students who take a moment to go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 or whatever. Your fluency is what makes this easier for you, so you need to know how to do that. Hopefully you started studying last week, but if not, you better get on it because the test again is here this week. The last type of problem is actually decently simple. It just requires our understanding of opposites. Because there's honestly no other way to describe it, we're just going to work through some so you can see why it's different. Here, when you multiply it out, you get 25x squared minus 40x, and then plus 40x, and then minus 64. Notice you have a negative 40 and a positive 40x. They cancel, which gives you 25x squared minus 64. And that is all. T minus 9, t plus 9 becomes t squared plus 9t minus 9t minus 81. Again, you notice these 9s, positive 9, negative 9 cancels. Make sure they're opposites, because if it's positive 9, or negative, negative, they don't cancel. One has to be positive, one has to be negative, and you end up with t squared minus 81 as your answer. The last one, again, that people fall for is because they don't follow the convention of writing letters in alphabetical order. So I'm going to do it the wrong way just to show you. So don't write this one. Just make sure you watch, and then we'll write the second one. What people will do is they'll put 9g to the 4th because it is 4 g's. Again, don't write this one yet. And they'll put 20 minus 24 g squared h. And then they'll put plus 24 h squared g. And then they'll put minus 64 h squared. Again, don't write that. And then they will look and say, are there any like terms? Here's g to the 4th. Nope, there is no other g to the 4th. G squared h. I'm sorry, it's hg squared on that one. They'll say g squared h. Nope, I don't see another g squared h. Hg squared. No, I don't see another one of those. And h squared. And you will miss this question, because what you are supposed to do is put your letters in alphabetical order. What we learned way back in chapter 1 or 2 of algebra, I think it's really chapter 1, is that you always want to put your letters in order, because if you don't, you miss out on the fact that this has 2 G's and 1 H. This also has 2 G's and 1 H. These are actually like terms. So when you work this question out, make sure you put it in the right form, which is 9g to the 4th minus 24g squared h plus 24 is your number. But again, when you put them in alphabetical order, you get g squared h like you're supposed to, minus 64 h squared. Now, these two things go together as like terms. 9g to the 4th minus 22 g squared h minus 64 h squared. I'm sorry, I wrote it wrong myself. Those two cancel. And so you get 9g to the 4th minus 64 h squared. I'm just doing a terrible job on that. My fault. But again, the bottom line there is that your g squared h needs to be written in alphabetical order on the second one. You end up with two opposites, and everything goes right where it's supposed to. Alright, so again, use today to ask about that. That's really all that you're supposed to be doing in math class anyway, is asking questions and learning how to use the new skills. This does represent the end of the material for this week's test. Be sure to practice it well and pay attention this week. It is always in your best interest to start the quarter with a good test score. Keep in mind your test score for this class is 50%. With me, I'm not sure about anybody else, but with me you're 50%. A list of what you need to understand for the test is here, so think about these things and whether or not you know them. And anything you don't know, you need to go back and kind of revisit. Degree, that's how many variables are attached. Standard form, that's whenever you go highest to lowest. Adding polynomials is just combining like terms. Remember that subtracting polynomials is whenever you have a negative outside of a parentheses, which means switch all three things. We know about the distributive property. Last week we did multiplying binomials, and today we just learned about the special cases. As long as you're okay on all of that, that is really all there is to it. But looking at the list, I truly believe that this is a very manageable set of information. I do hope you take it seriously as we move towards the test preparation for the week. So tomorrow you'll have a pre-test with me, then we'll go over the pre-test, and that'll be it. So other than that, go ahead and get to work on your Math Excel, and good luck.